very good afternoon to you, Kimathi. I just had a discussion with someone about the Ugandan interest rates, really setting the stage for the MPC there in Kenya to perhaps cut interest rates on that end.
A very good afternoon to you, Mashudu. It's always a pleasure being on the show. Yes, indeed, with Uganda's Bank of Uganda taking that move today of cutting their indicative interest rate by 200 basis points, it certainly sets the ball rolling also for the Kenyan side to do the same. Actually, if you look back over the past 9 months or so, the moves have been very similar in terms of what the Central Bank of Uganda does, what the Central Bank of Kenya does. So with that kind of a move today, one can definitely be sure that a similar move is on the playing cards for the Kenyan authorities when they meet later this week. So in my expectations, I think about 200 basis point cut would be adequate, although I don't usually advocate for such large moves in terms of the changing of the benchmark rates. I think 150 ought to have been better, but because the central bank has really been quite slow in moving and cutting or even increasing the interest rates, the benchmark rates where necessary, I think at this stage really a 200 basis point cut ought to be adequate.
We have some analysts advocating for a 300 basis points cut, but we'll see what happens in the days to come. But looking at the currency, it has come under pressure with regards to the fact that the central bank might cut rates. We did see it hit a 2-month low in today's session.
Yes, that's quite right. Although there are those calls for much higher interest rate cuts, I think it's a measured approach is what would work best. Although, as I've also mentioned just briefly, that unfortunately the central bank happens to have been a bit slow on this, so the higher rate cuts would actually come in quite handy. Now, the shilling, of course, has taken that slide today, owing to and brought out those fears because of that move, especially from Uganda, because the market really is reading it as pretty much a precursor to what's likely to happen here. Now, with the shilling taking that fall, largest fall it's had over the past 2 months, it really doesn't augur too well, because what it has done, it has brought out those fears of lower interest rates versus inflation versus a weaker shilling, which may destabilize the economy. And it is actually that stability that we have really experienced over the past 3, 4, 5 months that really has boded well for the economy as a whole, not so for the economic growth, but for the stability of the economy. That has been good news, especially looking at the shilling.
Another factor that could perhaps affect the shilling going forward, we had the central bank announcing that it would sell the 15-year treasury bond for up to 15 billion shillings at a coupon rate of 11%. Now that money would be used for budgetary support. What are your thoughts on this?
Yes, that is the news that came out today, that the central bank will introduce this 15-year treasury bond. And if you just compare it with what we were talking about earlier about Mauritius also doing something similar, but their rate is far much lower at about 8%. Jumping over to the Kenyan side, the issue really of the capital market, the country's debt to GDP ratio, the country's current account deficit. These really are concerns that are refusing to go away, although now the central bank and the treasury are pretty much at a hard place, because they need to support the budget. They need to bring out pull out some liquidity out of the market in order to support the shilling, and that hasn't been going particularly well. Although, to be honest, if you look at the shilling per se, in terms of the economic stability we've had over the past 3 months or so, as far as the fluctuations go, one may be tempted to look at it in a very positive way, although on the backdrop is that the huge issue is the huge issue at play is one to do with the crude oil prices, and that may come back to haunt us.
All right, let's bring it back to the market. We did have the market in positive territory, up 1% in today's trading session. Now, when you look at that NIC rights issue at 13 shillings, up 24.4% in today's trading session.
Yes, the NSE rights issue is quite interesting to look at. At the beginning of it, we felt that the lead broker had given an advice of a very low rate in terms of pegging the actual issue at 21. But we've seen that the market is really coming to try and bolster that, bridge that gap. So that really is the issue at play here, that the gap between the rights offer price of 21 and the market price at about 33 shillings is what the rights issue, the trading price is trying to bridge in. So at about 11 shillings, sometimes up to 13, which has been the high, still there is some small space for the rights issue to continue rising. But all in all, the rights issue has been taken quite well. A lot of trading on that particular counter.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Kimathi. That was Kimathi Ikiao. He's an independent analyst joining us from our studios in Nairobi.